They say love is blind, but obsession, ambition, and betrayal can blind you faster. Ethan Carter was the poster child of success, a self-made millionaire with a stunning mansion in Beverly Hills, a thriving investment portfolio, and a picture-perfect marriage. Yet, behind the immaculate facade, a sinister betrayal brewed, threatening to unravel the tapestry of his carefully constructed life. One heated night, in a moment of reckless fury, Ethan shoved his pregnant wife, Olivia, to protect his mistress, a moment that would crack his carefully curated world, sending fissures through its very foundation. Secrets simmered beneath grand chandeliers, whispered at exclusive galas, and haunted private jets en route to hidden islands. And when the truth emerged, it threatened to crumble everything he had built, leaving only ruins in its wake. Ethan Carter sipped his champagne, his eyes scanning the expansive ballroom. The annual West Coast Philanthropy Gala, hosted at the iconic Beverly Hills Hotel, was the crown jewel of the social calendar, attended by the wealthiest and most influential figures in the nation. Ethan was in his element, mingling effortlessly among tech giants like Elon Musk, media moguls like Oprah Winfrey, and philanthropic figures like Bill Gates, who was rumored to make an appearance that evening to promote a new global health initiative. It was a world away from his beginnings. Just a decade ago, Ethan was a junior financial analyst at a modest firm in Columbus, Ohio, meticulously scrounging for each month's rent, his dreams far outstripping his reality. Today, at 33, he was a millionaire many times over, with investment stakes in real estate, green energy, and even a thriving luxury car dealership chain. His network was formidable, his presence commanding. He had a taste for elegant suits, a penchant for grand gestures, and an unquenchable hunger for more deals, more influence, more admiration. Ethan's wife, Olivia Carter, stood at his side, radiant in a flowing emerald gown. 7 months pregnant, she glowed with a serenity that drew the attention of countless admirers, a gentle counterpoint to Ethan's restless energy. Where Ethan's world had once been lonely, marked by relentless drive, Olivia brought warmth and genuine connection. They married young, forging a partnership that felt, for a long time, unbreakable. She had witnessed his meteoric rise from obscurity to opulence and gently, consistently, reminded him to ground his ambition with compassion. But behind Ethan's calm facade lurked a growing restlessness. While Olivia and their unborn child should have completed his happiness, representing the pinnacle of his achievements, Ethan found himself too enthralled by the world's endless, glittering temptations. He wasn't content with what he had. He wanted to forge an empire that rivaled the biggest names in American business, a legacy etched in steel and stone. And with that insatiable desire came a whirlwind of new faces, intoxicating opportunities, and endless travel. Lately, Olivia's delicate condition meant fewer lavish trips abroad and fewer nights of wild partying. This shift, born out of necessity for her well-being, became just the opening Ethan, in his moral frailty, needed to slip into temptation. "Ethan," Olivia said, her voice soft but tinged with a familiar concern. "Are you all right? You seem a little distant tonight." He plastered a reassuring, almost practiced, smile across his face. "I'm great, honey. Just thinking about the potential partnerships tonight. This gala is always a goldmine for connections." His voice was breezy, casual, but as soon as Olivia's gaze moved away, he scanned the crowd once more, his eyes searching, not for a business contact, but for someone else, a new presence, a forbidden intrigue. Her name was Isabella Bella Vance, an Italian-American PR executive known for her impeccable networking skills and an unstoppable, almost ruthless charm. She had bright blue eyes that could disarm or command, an effortless style that spoke of understated luxury, and an insatiable ambition that mirrored Ethan's own. A few months back, Ethan had met Bella at a tech conference in San Francisco, where she was representing a promising medical startup. Their connection was immediate, electric, magnetic. They'd exchanged business cards, flirted discreetly over late-night cocktails in dimly lit hotel bars, and eventually succumbed to an affair that neither of them fully planned, but both, in their shared hunger for excitement, deeply desired. That evening at the gala, Bella wore a shimmering silver gown, the back cut low enough to turn heads all across the ballroom, a deliberate statement of her allure. When Ethan spotted her from across the floor, a wave of adrenaline coursed through him, a jolt of dangerous excitement. She met his eyes for just a second, offering a subtle, almost imperceptible tilt of her wine glass before turning away to network with a well-known film producer. The message was clear, unspoken yet potent. I'm here, and I won't be ignored. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest as he fought to keep his composure, the mask of the devoted husband firmly in place. Olivia remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around her, of the silent, charged exchange that had just transpired. She chatted politely with a few other pregnant wives, discussing baby names, nursery decor, and doctor recommendations. Ethan felt a sharp twinge of guilt as he watched Olivia, her face glowing with maternal pride and innocent anticipation. The child she carried was a symbol of their love, their shared history. He'd promised himself, long ago, that he would be different from the men who let success corrode their personal lives, who sacrificed family at the altar of ambition. Yet, the lure of Bella's fiery ambition and the rebellious, intoxicating thrill of secrecy tugged at him, a siren song he found increasingly difficult to resist. The more Ethan succeeded, the more he felt bored with routine, with the quiet stability Olivia offered. Bella was a wildfire, unpredictable and bewitching. In fleeting, selfish moments, he feared that Olivia's gentle warmth had grown too predictable, too safe. Halfway through the evening, Ethan quietly slipped away from Olivia's side, using the well-worn excuse of checking his phone for an urgent business call. He navigated the packed ballroom, weaving past the swirling sea of tuxedos and glittering gowns until he reached a secluded corridor near the lavish, marble-clad bathrooms. Bella stood there, leaning against a cool marble pillar, swirling her champagne with an air of nonchalant confidence. "You made me wait," she teased, arching an eyebrow, her voice a silky caress. "My wife was with me," he replied, glancing over his shoulder, a knot of anxiety tightening in his stomach to ensure no one was eavesdropping. "I'm here now." The corner of her mouth curved into a knowing smile. "So you are." She stepped closer, her perfume, a heady mix of jasmine and something muskier, enveloping him as she looked directly into his eyes. "I missed you." Ethan closed the small distance between them, inhaling the sweet, forbidden scent of her. "We're risking too much," he whispered, though the words lacked conviction, betrayed by the hunger in his own eyes. "We'll be careful," Bella promised, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial murmur. She brushed a fingertip across his lapel, a feather-light touch that sent shivers down his spine. "Because we both know we can't stay away from each other." He nodded, swallowing hard, the truth of her words undeniable. This was the night, this clandestine meeting, that would set in motion a chain of events neither could fully predict, a cascade of consequences that would reshape their lives. In that opulent corridor, amid expensive wallpaper and hushed, distant voices, Ethan Carter sealed his fate with a single, passionate kiss that somehow felt more electric, more dangerously alive than all his hard-won successes combined. In the following weeks, Olivia noticed subtle but undeniable changes in Ethan. He was more absent at home, frequently slipping away to urgent meetings or investor calls that stretched late into the night. Their family dinners, once a cherished ritual filled with shared laughter and plans for the future, became rushed, perfunctory affairs, often interrupted by the insistent buzz of his phone. His phone, now perpetually in his hand or close by, would light up with messages at odd hours, which he casually justified as time zone differences when dealing with overseas clients. Ethan's entire world had become a precarious balancing act. On the business front, he was orchestrating the final, critical steps to acquire a massive real estate property in downtown Los Angeles, a deal that had the potential to skyrocket his net worth and establish him as a formidable player in West Coast real estate. It was the culmination of years of planning and relentless effort. On the personal front, he was juggling two women: the mother of his child, the woman he had loved for years and who represented stability and home, and the new mistress, who ignited a reckless passion he never knew he craved, a thrilling escape from the life he had built. But cracks, inevitably, began to show in the carefully constructed facade. Olivia sensed his growing distance, a coldness seeping into their interactions. Her once delicate constitution, now taxed by the stress of a complicated pregnancy and the unspoken anxieties about her marriage, made her worry that her husband was drifting away at the most critical moment of their lives. One evening, armed with a quiet desperation, Olivia confronted him. "Ethan," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly as she stood in the doorway of his home office, a sanctuary he increasingly retreated to. "I've been thinking. You've been so busy lately. We hardly talk anymore. Is something wrong?" Ethan lifted his head from his laptop, his eyes weary, shadowed with fatigue and an unreadable emotion. He forced a comforting smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I'm fine. Leave. Just this new deal is massive. I'm trying to stay on top of everything so that we can—" He paused, searching for the right words, the ones that would soothe her fears, "so that we can have the best future for us and the baby." She walked over to him gently, her steps slow and deliberate, resting a hand on her prominent belly. "I appreciate everything you do for us, Ethan. I truly do. But I worry. You changed somehow. You're not really here, even when you are." Guilt, sharp and unwelcome, gnawed at him. He stood and approached her, placing a hand over hers on her belly, feeling the gentle movement of their child within. He remembered the first time she'd told him she was pregnant. The overwhelming joy, the tears in his eyes, the feeling that his world was finally complete. How had he strayed so far from that moment? "I'm sorry," he murmured, his voice thick with an emotion he couldn't fully express, or perhaps wouldn't allow himself to. "I promise, once this deal is done, I'll slow down. We'll spend more time together. It's just temporary, this pressure." Relief flashed across her features, but only for a moment, quickly replaced by a lingering sadness. "All right, Ethan," Olivia whispered, her gaze searching his. "Just remember, we're in this together, or we're supposed to be." Ethan enveloped her in a hug, the weight of his double life pressing down like a cage around his heart. He couldn't deny that Olivia's presence provided comfort, a respite from the chaos of his ambition and his illicit affair. But as he held his wife, his phone buzzed with a text from Bella, a stark reminder of his betrayal. He couldn't resist sneaking a glance once Olivia looked away. The text read, "I miss you. Need to see you tonight." His stomach churned with a sickening mix of desire and dread. That night, Ethan insisted he had a late, unavoidable meeting with an overseas investor. Olivia believed him, or at least she pretended to, but her eyes brimmed with unshed tears once he left, the front door closing with a soft click that echoed the growing emptiness in their home. She walked to the nursery they were designing, a room filled with soft pastels and hopeful dreams, running her fingers across a tiny pair of blue booties. She tried to ignore the dread brewing in her heart, a cold premonition that something was terribly wrong. As Olivia's due date approached, her health became increasingly delicate. Doctors advised her to minimize stress and prioritize rest, prescriptions that seemed impossible to follow given the turmoil in her marriage. She found herself needing more of Ethan's presence, not just financially, but emotionally. She yearned to share her worries, her hopes, the subtle shifts in the baby's movements that she felt each day, those small miracles that bound them together. But Ethan's presence was ephemeral, fleeting. He was physically in their grand house only half the time, and even then, his mind seemed always somewhere else, lost in calculations, or, she feared, in thoughts of another. In truth, Ethan was embroiled in an intense negotiation with a consortium of investors for his downtown Los Angeles real estate project. The numbers involved were astronomical $150 million to secure prime land intended for a luxury hotel, private condos, and high-end retail. If successful, Ethan would join the ranks of legendary tycoons, a dream he'd harbored since the days he lived in a cramped studio apartment, fueled by ramen noodles and ambition. Bella, too, was pushing him, subtly at first, then more insistently, to accelerate their relationship. She hinted that he should consider leaving Olivia, especially given that the baby's birth would only complicate matters further, making a clean break more difficult. Whenever Ethan resisted the idea, his lingering loyalty to Olivia warring with his infatuation, Bella would remind him of the excitement and ambition they shared, painting a vivid, seductive future where they would be unstoppable partners in business and in life, a power couple unencumbered by domesticity. Caught between these two powerful forces, his responsibility to his wife and unborn child, and his intoxicating, dangerous affair with Bella, Ethan began to unravel. Every day, he juggled urgent phone calls, clandestine rendezvous with Bella in discreet hotel suites, and concerned, sometimes tearful, messages from Olivia. The guilt and anxiety gnawed at him relentlessly, a constant, dull ache beneath the surface of his outward confidence. But the thought of halting his passionate affair, of relinquishing the thrill Bella represented, felt impossible, like trying to extinguish a wildfire with a teacup of water. One evening, Olivia, feeling increasingly isolated and anxious, made a desperate move. Feeling a sharp, stabbing pain in her lower back, she called Ethan repeatedly, only to be sent to voicemail again and again, each unanswered call amplifying her fear. In a rising panic, she rang his executive assistant, who reluctantly divulged, after much persuasion, that he was at a private dinner discussing a critical business matter. Olivia, trembling, clutched her phone, her knuckles white. She knew Ethan's deal was crucial, the cornerstone of his empire, but her heart pounded with a primal fear. What if there was a complication with her pregnancy? And he wasn't there. He wouldn't even answer her calls. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Ethan answered, his voice sharp with irritation. "Olivia, I'm in the middle of something urgent," he hissed into the phone, stepping outside the upscale restaurant where he'd been dining with Bella and two potential investors, the city lights blurring behind him. "Is this absolutely necessary?" "Ethan," she said through choked tears, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm in pain. I'm scared. Something is wrong." A flicker of concern, perhaps genuine, perhaps just a reflex, crossed his features. "Did you call Dr. Miller?" She nodded, though he couldn't see her, tears streaming down her face. "He's on his way. But I need you, Ethan. Please come home." The moment stretched, taut and heavy with unspoken accusations and fear. Ethan glanced back at the restaurant's floor-to-ceiling windows. Bella watched him from inside, her expression stern, impatient, wanting him to conclude the call and return to the business at hand. The investors were sipping their wine, glancing at their phones, their polite smiles wearing thin. This dinner was crucial for the future of his empire, a deal that could redefine his career. Yet, Olivia's voice, small and trembling with genuine fear, echoed in his ear. "Okay," Ethan said softly, pinching the bridge of his nose, the weight of his choices suddenly immense. "I'll come home. I'm on my way." When he returned to the table, his face pale, Bella raised an eyebrow, her disapproval palpable. "You're leaving?" "My wife," he said, his voice low and strained. "She's experiencing complications. I have to go." Bella's eyes hardened, a glint of steel in their blue depths. "These men flew in from Tokyo for this meeting, Ethan. This is unprofessional." Ethan clenched his jaw, a muscle twitching in his cheek. "I can't ignore Olivia's needs right now. It's an emergency." He paid the bill hastily, offered a curt, flustered apology to the bewildered investors, and left, the uneaten food growing cold on the table. Bella's gaze followed him, smoldering with disappointment and a hint of possessiveness. She hated how Olivia, unseen and distant, still held the power to pull Ethan away, to disrupt their carefully constructed plans. Meanwhile, Olivia waited anxiously at home, doubled over in pain, each minute an agony of fear and uncertainty. When Ethan finally arrived, he found her pale-faced and breathless, tears streaming down her cheeks. Dr. Miller examined her, concluding that while the baby was, for now, healthy, Olivia's stress levels were alarmingly high. She needed her husband's consistent emotional support, not just a promise of future wealth or fleeting moments of attention. That night, Ethan slept fitfully, if at all. Olivia dozed off in his arms, momentarily relieved he was there, her fears slightly assuaged by his physical presence. But Ethan lay awake, his mind churning, a battlefield of conflicting desires and responsibilities. He felt trapped, suffocated by his obligations, uncertain where his heart, or what was left of it, truly lay. He wanted to be a good father and husband, the man Olivia deserved. He also wanted to pursue the scorching, thrilling, rebellious romance with Bella, a woman who mirrored his own ambition. He convinced himself, foolishly, that he could keep both worlds separate, at least for now, that he could manage the impossible. Olivia's suspicions solidified into a sickening certainty the next day. While Ethan was at a morning meeting, she gathered laundry to wash, a mundane chore that would irrevocably alter her life. She picked up one of his suit jackets from the bedroom floor, a garment he'd worn to his late meeting, and felt a phone vibrating in the pocket. Confused, knowing his primary phone was on his nightstand, Olivia pulled out a sleek, unfamiliar second phone. It was locked, requiring a passcode, but the screen briefly lit up with a name she'd never seen before, Isabella Vance, accompanied by a text preview that seared itself in her mind. Last night was unforgettable. Thinking about you. Winky face. Olivia's heart lurched, a cold wave sweeping over her, making her gasp for breath. Her mind raced with 1,000 frantic explanations, desperate to find an innocent reason. Could it be just a business contact? A flirtatious client? No, the tone was too personal, too intimate. The winking emoji was a cruel, casual confirmation of her deepest fears. She felt dizzy, sinking onto the edge of the bed, the secret phone clutched in her trembling hand. The baby kicked inside her, a sudden, sharp movement, as though sensing her turmoil. Ethan had another phone, a secret life, one she'd never known existed. Olivia tried every passcode she could think off birthdays, anniversaries, even their dog's name, but none worked. Eventually, numb and shaking, she placed it on the bedside table, a silent, damning piece of evidence, her body trembling with a potent cocktail of anger and profound heartbreak. When Ethan returned that evening, full of false cheer and talk of a successful meeting, Olivia was seated in the living room, the secret phone held loosely in her hand, her face a mask of stony grief. He froze in the foyer, the color draining from his face as he saw the object of his deception displayed so openly. For a long, agonizing moment, neither spoke, the silence thick with unspoken accusations and the weight of his betrayal. Then, Olivia's voice, raw and broken, cut through the silence. "Who is Isabella Vance, Ethan?" A million lies, excuses, and deflections fluttered through Ethan's mind, but Olivia's tearful, accusing eyes told him any further deception would only deepen the wound, perhaps irreparably. He started to stammer, his usual eloquence failing him. She's a work contact. Someone from the LA deal." Olivia shot up from the couch, a trembling hand pressing against her pregnant belly, her eyes blazing with a pain that tore at him. "Don't lie to me, Ethan. Not anymore. I saw the message she sent. How long have you been seeing her?" He closed his eyes, breathing heavily, the charade finally over. "It's complicated, Olivia." "Complicated?" She spat, her voice breaking, laced with disbelief and agony. "You're carrying on an affair while I'm pregnant with your child. How is that complicated? It's monstrous." He stepped forward, his arms raised in a pleading, almost desperate gesture. "I never wanted to hurt you, Liv. Bella and it just happened. I promise, it doesn't change how I feel about you, about us, about the baby." Olivia let out a bitter, broken laugh, tears streaking her cheeks, carving paths through her carefully applied makeup. "It already has, Ethan. You've been distant, absent, and lying to me for months. How could you do this to us? To our family?" Ethan stared at her, guilt etched into every line of his features. He saw the profound heartbreak he'd caused, recognized his own devastating selfishness in that moment. He tried to approach her to offer some semblance of comfort, but she took a sharp step back, as if his touch would burn her. "Olivia, I felt trapped in my routines." And Bella, she was new, exciting. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for things to go this far." She shook her head, her eyes wide with disbelief and a deep, sorrowful anger. "You're sorry? That's all you have to say after shattering my world?" For the next hour, they argued, tears and accusations filling the once peaceful, opulent home, the ugly words echoing off the high ceilings. The baby's due date was just weeks away, a ticking clock underscoring the devastation of his betrayal, and Olivia's voice cracked with every plea for Ethan to end the affair, to choose his family. He insisted he would break it off. He promised, again and again, to do the right thing, to dedicate himself to her and the baby. By the time the shouting subsided, replaced by exhausted sobs, Olivia was physically and emotionally drained, her body trembling with fatigue and sorrow. Ethan helped her to their bed, offering water and rubbing her back to soothe the tension, his touch now feeling foreign and tainted. Though Olivia let him comfort her, a hollow shell of their former intimacy, she couldn't suppress the aching betrayal twisting inside like a knife. She wanted to believe he'd stop seeing Bella, but she sensed, with a chilling certainty, that the hold Bella had on him ran dangerously deep, a toxic addiction he might not be willing or able to break. Despite Ethan's tearful vows to end things, Bella Vance wasn't prepared to let go so easily. When Ethan, summoning a courage he hadn't possessed before, tried to break it off with her, she replied not with understanding, but with practiced tears and a flurry of pointed accusations. "I gave you my time, my energy, my support," she hissed, her beautiful face contorted with an anger that was both theatrical and genuinely felt. "You promised me we'd build something incredible together, Ethan. Don't you dare walk away now, just because your wife found out about us." Ethan felt cornered, simultaneously repelled by Bella's fury and still, perversely, charmed by her raw charisma. He tried to reason with her, his voice strained. "You don't understand. Olivia is pregnant, and this affair, it's tearing everything apart. My family is my priority." Bella's eyes blazed with contempt. "Don't insult my intelligence, Ethan. I know exactly what's at stake. But did you think you could just use me, enjoy the thrill, and then throw me away like last season's fashion? Remember that non-disclosure agreement you had me sign for this real estate deal? All that sensitive, insider information you confided in me when you needed someone to strategize with, someone who understood your ambition." Her voice dropped, taking on a menacing edge. "If you walk away, you'll be leaving me with a lot of secrets, Ethan. Secrets that might just interest your competitors, or perhaps even the SEC. Ethan's stomach twisted into a cold knot. Over the months of their affair, in moments of shared ambition and illicit intimacy, he'd shared confidential business plans with Bella, details about his negotiations, his financial structuring, even potential vulnerabilities in his LA deal. She was cunning and well-connected in PR and media circles. If word got out about certain aspects of his negotiations, if she chose to leak even a fraction of what he'd told her, it could ruin the entire deal. Worse, it could spark serious legal troubles for him, unraveling the empire he'd worked so hard to build. Bella knew precisely where and how to apply pressure, her threat veiled but unmistakable. Caught in this insidious web of his own making, Ethan continued to see Bella, albeit more furtively, his guilt now compounded by a growing fear of her. He spun a new set of lies to Olivia, insisting that he was merely wrapping up loose ends related to his project, so he could dedicate all his time to her and the baby once it was finalized. Olivia, though still seething from the betrayal and deeply suspicious, tried to believe him, clinging to a sliver of hope that he was telling the truth, that their family could still be salvaged. She attended her prenatal checkups alone more often than not, refusing to let Ethan accompany her, a silent protest, until he could prove definitively that the affair was over. It happened on a night that should have been celebratory, a night marking the pinnacle of his professional achievements. Ethan had just closed the gargantuan downtown Los Angeles deal. His real estate acquisition, the one he'd poured his soul into, was finally secured. He returned home late, his mind exhilarated by the success, yet simultaneously anxious about how to navigate the next phase of his complicated double life. Olivia was in the living room, quietly sorting through a pile of baby clothes, the soft fabric a stark contrast to the tension in the air. She looked up as he entered, exhaustion and a deep, settled heartbreak etched into her usually vibrant face. Before Ethan could speak, to share his news, or offer another placating apology, his phone buzzed on the console table. Bella again, I presume? Olivia shot him a scornful, weary look. Are you still in contact with her? She asked, her tone hollow, devoid of its usual warmth. He swallowed hard, the elation of his business triumph instantly evaporating. It's just about the real estate deal, he lied, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. Nothing personal, just tying up final details. Olivia stared at him, her eyes, usually so full of love, now filled with a chilling disappointment. Her voice trembled with a rising anger. I've tried to be patient, Ethan. I try to understand, to give you space. But I'm done with the excuses. Our child is due any day now, and you are still chasing after that woman, still entangled in your lies. I need you to pick, Ethan. Pick who you want in your life. Me and our baby, or your mistress. You can't have both. Ethan's phone buzzed again, an insistent, demanding sound. Before he could react, Olivia, fueled by a surge of desperate anger, grabbed it from the table. She saw another message from Bella pop up on the screen. I miss you, Ethan. We should celebrate tonight. My place. Seething, her face flushed with a mixture of rage and profound hurt, Olivia turned on him. It's not just business, is it? You just keep lying and lying and lying. And she broke off, tears streaming down her face, her voice choked with emotion. I can't take it anymore, Ethan. I just can't. Ethan reached out, his own temper flaring, panic surging through him at the thought of Olivia reading more. Give me that phone, Olivia, he shouted, his voice harsh and demanding. Their voices rose, echoing against the high ceilings of their opulent, yet emotionally barren, home. Olivia clutched the phone to her chest, a defiant, desperate gesture. Ethan lunged to retrieve it, his frustration and fear momentarily eclipsing all reason. In a split second of uncontrolled fury and desperation, he shoved her aside, harder than he ever meant to, harder than he ever imagined he could. Olivia, heavily pregnant and unbalanced, stumbled. She fell backwards, her arms flailing, onto the hard, unforgiving hardwood floor with a sickening thud that seemed to reverberate through the entire house. For a terrifying, suspended moment, everything froze. Olivia's eyes were wide with shock and a dawning, uncomprehending pain. Pain contorted her face, and a sharp, guttural cry tore from her throat, a sound of pure agony. Ethan gasped, his heart pounding in his ears like a drum, the adrenaline of his anger instantly replaced by a cold, sickening horror. He rushed to her side, dropping to his knees. Oh God, Olivia, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. Are you okay? Please, tell me you're okay. She whimpered, her hands instinctively cradling her stomach, her face ashen. Pain, sharp and intense, shot through her body, and she struggled to breathe. I think something's wrong, she gasped, her voice weak and laced with terror. Ethan's entire world narrowed to that single, horrifying moment, the devastating realization of what he'd done. He fumbled for his own phone, his hands shaking so violently he could barely dial, ignoring Bella's messages now, their significance paling in the face of this new, terrible reality. He dialed 911, his voice choked and unsteady as he relayed their address to the operator. Olivia lay curled on the floor, tears of pain and panic streaming down her face, her eyes fixed on him with an expression of profound fear and betrayal. In the agonizing minutes before the ambulance arrived, Ethan held Olivia's hand, apologizing over and over, the words tumbling out in a desperate, incoherent stream. He could hardly breathe, paralyzed by the monstrous realization that he had physically harmed the woman carrying his child, the woman he had once vowed to protect. This single, brutal act, born out of desperation, selfishness, and rage, would irrevocably change everything. Paramedics arrived, their calm professionalism a stark contrast to the chaos in Ethan's soul. They carefully strapped Olivia to a gurney, hooking her up to monitors, their movements efficient and practiced. She winced with every bump, every movement. Ethan rode along in the ambulance, panic scorching his veins, the wail of the siren a soundtrack to his spiraling guilt. The paramedics asked routine questions about what happened, how she fell. But Ethan's guilt made him feel like every syllable he uttered, every carefully chosen, evasive word, revealed his darkest secrets, his shameful failure as a husband and a man. At the hospital, they rushed Olivia into an examination room. The harsh, bright fluorescent lights and the frantic, purposeful movements of nurses and doctors hammering Ethan's already frayed nerves. He paced the sterile hallway, his hands shaking, his mind replaying the shove, the fall, Olivia's cry, over and over in a torturous loop. Dr. Miller, Olivia's obstetrician, emerged after what felt like an eternity, his face grave. "There's a risk of premature labor, Ethan," he said, his voice low and serious. "We need to monitor Olivia very closely. She's under immense stress, both emotionally and physically, and that fall could have caused serious complications." Ethan tried to speak, to ask, to apologize, but no sound emerged, his throat tight with unshed tears and suffocating guilt. Guilt hammered him with relentless, unforgiving force. Dr. Miller eyed him with a look of undisguised disapproval. "I understand tensions can be high, Ethan, especially with a new baby on the way. But Olivia and the baby's well-being must be your absolute priority. She needs calm, Ethan. No more stress. Do you understand?" For hours, Ethan remained by Olivia's bedside, a silent, anguished vigil. She dozed in and out of a restless, medicated sleep, receiving 4 fluids and medication to prevent early labor. When she finally opened her eyes, her gaze hazy and unfocused, Ethan gently squeezed her hand, his own cold and clammy. "Olivia," he began, his voice hoarse. She turned her face away, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Her voice cracked, barely above a whisper. "Don't. Just don't." Ethan felt as though his heart was being crushed in a vice. In that moment, he realized how far he'd fallen from the proud, successful husband anticipating fatherhood to a man who had literally knocked his pregnant wife down because of his entanglement with another woman. He wanted to tear the last few months from his life, to rewrite every moment he'd chosen Bella's intoxicating allure over Olivia's steadfast love. The baby's vital signs, mercifully, remained steady, but Olivia was forced to remain in the hospital for close observation. Friends, neighbors, and even Ethan's mother visited, their faces etched with concern. None fully understood the true cause of Olivia's accident. Ethan had given a vague, sanitized explanation about her slipping, a clumsy fall. Olivia, lost in her own world of pain and betrayal, remained silent, her eyes hollow and haunted. Ethan's PR-minded thought was to keep the real story quiet, to manage the potential fallout. But the guilt festered, a toxic wound in his soul. Each time he met Olivia's gaze, he felt her fear, her heartbreak, and the intangible, unbridgeable distance that now separated them like a black, gaping canyon. He also felt a wave of profound self-loathing, realizing that in his relentless pursuit of ambition and fleeting pleasure, he had betrayed everything that once mattered, everything he once held sacred. As Olivia lay in the sterile white hospital room recovering, her body bruised and her spirit shattered, Ethan faced another devastating blow. Bella, somehow, had learned of Olivia's hospitalization and, more alarmingly, the real reason behind it. Perhaps she heard from a mutual acquaintance in their gossipy social circle. Or perhaps Ethan himself, in a moment of panic and misplaced trust, confessed too much during a fraught phone call. Regardless of how she found out, she seized the opportunity with predatory precision. Bella threatened to expose Ethan's affair and the violent incident if he didn't fulfill her escalating demands. A public acknowledgement of their relationship once Olivia was stable, a substantial promise to financially back her new PR firm, and a binding guarantee that she'd remain a key advisor in his real estate ventures, effectively cementing her place in his professional and, by implication, personal life. Her emails were coldly explicit, enumerating salacious details of their affair and the sensitive business secrets he'd foolishly confided in her. If Ethan refused, she promised to leak it all to the media, to his key investors, and even to Olivia's family. Cornered, desperate, and terrified, Ethan sought legal advice. He feared that if Bella went public, it would destroy not only his hard-won business reputation, but also any remaining, fragile hope of salvaging his marriage. He had built an empire on trust, or at least the illusion of impeccable character. A scandal of this magnitude could see him ostracized, his deals collapsing, possibly even facing lawsuits for unethical conduct. Worse still, the horrifying knowledge that he'd physically harmed Olivia and almost jeopardized their baby's life made him certain, with a clarity born of deep remorse, that the only moral path forward was to break all ties with Bella, whatever the cost. But Bella was cunning, driven by a potent mix of ambition and wounded pride. He could not simply pay her off. She had made that clear. She wanted more than money. She wanted status, power, and perhaps a perverse form of revenge. Caught in this tempest of his own creation, Andrew made another ill-advised decision, a desperate gamble. He tried to broker a secret deal with Bella, a sizable lump sum payment, hush money, combined with a vague promise to give her a minor, non-influential role in one of his new companies. He believed, naively, that this would placate her enough to vanish from his life. Yet, as soon as the money landed in Bella's account, she demanded even more. She threatened to come clean to Olivia directly, to appear on national television, to publish their text messages and intimate photos. Ethan realized, too late and with a sickening lurch, that he had handed over the very leverage Bella needed to tighten her control, to make him dance to her tune. Throughout Olivia's hospital stay, Ethan visited daily, though their conversations were terse, stilted, and fraught with unspoken pain. Each day, Dr. Miller reported that Olivia's physical condition was improving, the baby stable. Yet her emotional wounds were raw and deep, far harder to heal than any bruise. She asked Ethan more than once to leave her alone, to let her recover without his suffocating presence, his constant, painful reminders of his betrayal. He refused to abandon her, though he knew his presence was as much a torment as a comfort. One afternoon, as pale sunlight filtered through the drawn curtains of the hospital room, casting long shadows, Ethan found the courage to speak, to attempt a real apology. "Liv," he began, his voice hoarse, "I can't begin to apologize enough for what I did. It was inexcusable, unforgivable, and I'm so deeply ashamed of who I've become." She stared at the window, silent, her profile etched against the weak light. His voice trembled, thick with emotion. "I let ambition blind me. I let lust for success, and for Bella lead me astray. I was a fool, a selfish, arrogant fool. But I swear to you, Olivia, I want to fix this. I'll do anything to make it right if you'll just give me a chance." Olivia blinked back tears, her gaze slowly turning towards him. "Then end it," she said, her voice surprisingly firm despite its tremor. "End it for good. Cut her out of your life completely, and tell me the truth about everything. No more lies, Ethan. I can't bear any more lies." He nodded, swallowing hard, a lump in his throat. "I will. I promise you I will." She turned to him fully then, her eyes, red-rimmed and weary, searching his face for any hint of duplicity, any sign of the practiced deceit he had become so adept at. "Ethan, this isn't just about you and me anymore. I'm bringing a child into this world, our child. And I won't have this chaos, this toxicity in our lives. If you want to repair anything, you'll have to be completely honest, and you'll have to put our family first, truly first this time. Ethan reached for her hand, a tentative gesture. He felt a surge of relief when she didn't pull away, when her fingers, though hesitant, remained in his. I will, Olivia. I swear on my life I will. Within that sterile hospital room, amidst the beeping monitors and the scent of antiseptic, Ethan felt a tiny, fragile spark of hope ignite. For the first time in months, he truly understood the gravity of what he was risking, the preciousness of what he stood to lose. The monstrous lie he'd been living had already done irreparable harm. But maybe, just maybe, he could salvage something from the wreckage. Buoyed by this fragile possibility of redemption, Ethan requested a final meeting with Bella at her high-rise apartment in downtown Los Angeles. He came prepared. His attorney had drafted a strongly worded cease and desist letter, threatening swift legal action if Bella continued to blackmail or harass him. He also brought a single check, funds to reimburse the hush money he'd previously, foolishly, given her. This time he was resolute. No more payoffs, no more deals, no more fear. Bella greeted him at the door in a sleek black dress, her smile frigid, her eyes like chips of ice. I see you finally decided to crawl back, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm as she stepped aside to let him in. Ethan walked in, his gaze sweeping across the minimalist, expensive decor. The view from her floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the sprawling LA skyline, sparkling with a million distant possibilities, a world he was now determined to disentangle from her. I'm not here to crawl back, Bella, he replied, his voice steady firm. I'm here to end this. For good. He placed the envelope containing the legal letter on the gleaming glass coffee table. Inside is a letter from my legal team. It outlines the serious legal ramifications you'll face if you continue to threaten or defame me. He then slid another slip of paper forward, the reimbursement check. And this check is the exact sum I paid you before. I'm not buying your silence anymore. I'm returning the money, so you have no leverage, no way to claim it was hush money or an investment. We're done, Bella. Completely and utterly done. Bella's face darkened, her carefully constructed composure cracking. You think a piece of paper can stop me, Ethan? You think I care about your high-priced attorneys? I think you'll care about the countersuits and potential criminal charges for extortion if you try to release any fabricated or private information to damage me or my family. Ethan shot back, his own anger, cold and controlled, finally surfacing. You're free to speak the truth about our affair. Any lie I have to face, I will. But if you lie or twist facts to sabotage my business or harass my family, you'll face serious consequences. I won't let you destroy everything. Bella clenched her jaw, pacing the length of her luxurious living room like a caged panther. You're throwing everything away, Ethan. We could have built an empire together. We were good together. Ethan gazed at her, recalling the thrilling nights, the heady excitement she brought into his otherwise structured life. Yet, in that moment, all he felt was a profound sorrow for the man he'd become under her influence, and a desperate need to reclaim his integrity. I have a family, Bella. My wife and my child come first. They always should have. She scoffed, a harsh, dismissive sound. Now you remember your precious family. After all we did, all the plans we made. His expression hardened. I made mistakes, Bella. Terrible, life-altering mistakes. This ends now. I won't negotiate. I won't plead. I won't be threatened anymore. Do what you must, but stay out of my life and stay away from Olivia. Something in Ethan's unwavering tone, in the steel in his eyes, finally gave Bella pause. Her eyes flickered with a complex mix of anger, regret, and maybe, just maybe, a grudging admiration for his newfound, albeit belated, resolve. But she refused to let it show, her pride too deeply wounded. Fine, she finally hissed, her voice venomous. But don't forget, Ethan, I can still go public. Good luck keeping your perfect, respectable image intact after the world knows what you really are. Ethan turned to leave, his shoulders heavy, but his spirit lighter than it had been in months. At the door, he hesitated, turning back for a final word. "I'm sorry," he murmured, the apology genuine, not for ending the affair, but for the pain he'd caused her in his recklessness. "I'm sorry I led you on, that I wasn't honest with you from the start. But this is over." With that, he walked out into the corridor, his shoulders tight with residual tension. He half expected Bella to run after him, to fling more insults or threats, but all he heard was the decisive, echoing slam of the door behind him. Though anxiety still twisted in his gut about what she might do, he felt the first real sense of clarity, of liberation, in months. News of Ethan's affair, or at least strong rumors of it, did eventually reach certain circles. Bella, furious and vindictive, leaked enough suggestive innuendo to cause a minor scandal among Los Angeles' elite. A few tabloids published speculative, salacious pieces about Ethan's personal life, though none had solid, verifiable evidence to run a definitive expose, thanks in part to Ethan's lawyer's swift and aggressive responses. Some investors grew skittish, their confidence shaken, prompting Ethan to grant a carefully worded press conference, clarifying that his personal matters, which were being resolved, would not affect his business acumen or the stability of his companies. His lawyers also threatened significant lawsuits against any media entity that broadcasted unverified claims, particularly concerning the assault on Olivia, a detail Bella had maliciously hinted at. Meanwhile, Olivia was discharged from the hospital, placed on strict bed rest at home until her delivery. Ethan moved back into their house, though he slept in the guest room, dedicating his time and energy to her care. Tensions lingered, a thick, palpable cloud in their once happy home. Olivia often turned away from him when he tried to help. The memory of being shoved, the agonizing discovery of his betrayal, still painfully fresh, a raw wound that throbbed with every interaction. Yet, Ethan persisted, determined to show her, through consistent action rather than empty words, that his remorse was genuine, that his desire to change was real. Their house, once filled with the clamor of social gatherings, business calls, and ambitious plans, fell hushed, almost eerily quiet. Ethan canceled most appointments, restricting his calls to short, essential bursts conducted in another room, far from Olivia's hearing. Each day, he read to Olivia, sometimes for hours, from books she loved. He prepared her meals, meticulously following the doctor's dietary guidelines, and assisted her with everything from adjusting pillows to gently massaging her swollen ankles. Slowly, painstakingly, the walls she'd understandably built around herself began to crack, allowing small, tentative glimmers of hope to seep through. One late afternoon, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Olivia looked at him, her voice soft, vulnerable. "I'm scared, Ethan." He placed his hand over hers, his touch gentle, questioning. "Scared of what, Liv?" Her eyes filled with tears, spilling onto her cheeks. "Scared you'll hurt me again. Not just physically, Ethan, but emotionally. I don't know how to trust you anymore. I don't know if I ever can." Ethan's throat tightened, her words a painful affirmation of his failings. He knelt by her side, his heart aching with his sorrow, so profound it felt like a physical weight. "I understand," he whispered, "and I don't blame you. I can't promise it'll be easy, Olivia, and I know I don't deserve a second chance. But I'll spend the rest of my life, every single day, proving I'm worthy of your trust, even a fraction of it." She searched his face, pain and a desperate, yearning longing intermingled in her gaze. "I want to believe you, Ethan. A part of me, a very small part, desperately wants to." He kissed the back of her hand gently, letting his own tears fall, unashamed. "I love you, Olivia. I let darkness, my own weakness and ambition, overshadow that truth. But I do love you, more than anything." Time passed with agonizing slowness, measured in cautious conversations and shared, silent moments. Their communications improved, bit by painstaking bit. Olivia began to share her anxieties about the upcoming birth, her fears for the baby, for herself. Ethan reassured her, reminding her that Dr. Miller was confident the baby would be healthy, that they would get through this. Although their marriage was riddled with deep fractures, they were, for the first time in a long while, both fighting for the same future, a safe arrival for their child, and a chance, however slim, at renewal. It was a humid summer evening when Olivia went into labor. Weeks of stressful bed rest culminated in a sudden, intense rush of contractions, strong enough, painful enough, to send them speeding back to the hospital, their hearts pounding in unison with a mix of fear and anticipation. Ethan gripped her hand throughout the entire ambulance ride, comforting her through every searing wave of pain, his own fear a knot in his stomach. He felt the weight of potential redemption in that grip, praying for a miracle that would deliver both mother and child safely, a chance to begin to atone for his sins. At the hospital, Olivia was wheeled quickly into the delivery room. Ethan stayed by her side, resolutely pushing aside the haunting memories of the last time they were there under such traumatic circumstances. Dr. Miller and the dedicated team of nurses moved quickly, efficiently, hooking Olivia up to monitors, their voices calm and reassuring. The labor was tense, arduous. Her body was still recovering from the trauma of the fall, the stress of the preceding months, and the baby's heartbeat occasionally, alarmingly, wavered on the monitor, sending fresh waves of panic through Ethan. Hours passed like a fever dream. Olivia screamed, tears of pain mingling with fear and exhaustion. Ethan held her hand, his own knuckles white, whispering encouragement, wiping her brow, his own tears dampening his shirt collar, every muscle in his body taut with a desperate hope. He kept recalling that horrific night, the argument, the shove, the look of shock and pain in her eyes, the terrible danger he'd put them both in. Now, he wanted nothing more in the world than to ensure their child arrived safely, to see Olivia through this ordeal. At last, after what felt like an eternity of struggle, a piercing, healthy newborn cry shattered the suffocating tension in the room. Dr. Miller, smiling broadly, held up a tiny baby boy, swaddled and perfect, wailing at the top of his lungs, announcing his arrival to the world. Olivia collapsed back against the pillows, utterly spent, tears of profound relief and overwhelming joy streaming down her flushed cheeks. Ethan felt his own breath catch in his throat, a maelstrom of gratitude, guilt, and an overwhelming, boundless love surging through him, threatening to break him. The nurses gently cleaned the baby and placed him on Olivia's chest. She gazed down at their son, her eyes brimming with awe and a fierce, protective love, running a trembling hand across his soft, downy cheek. Ethan leaned in, pressing a tender, reverent kiss to Olivia's forehead. "He's beautiful, Liv," he choked out, his own tears falling freely now, unheeded. "He's absolutely perfect. Thank you for giving us this miracle." Olivia locked eyes with him, a fragile, exhausted smile gracing her lips. In that raw, sacred moment, no words were needed. Their child's tiny, precious heartbeat pulsed between them, forging an unbreakable bond, a beacon of hope that, at least for that moment, overshadowed every betrayal, every lie, every ounce of pain. They named him Noah, for he brought a quiet comfort into their fractured world, a reason to find strength and rest in each other again. The hospital room had grown quieter with each passing day. Machines no longer beeped with jarring urgency. Nurses came and went in softer, more measured tones. Olivia's physical condition had stabilized, and Noah, tiny, pink, and full of new, innocent life, was now the quiet, precious anchor at the center of it all. But the true healing, the deeper, more arduous mending, wasn't happening in the blood pressure readings or the discharge charts. It was unfolding in the slow, fragile, uncertain space between Olivia and Ethan. Every day, Ethan showed up. He brought fresh flowers, though Olivia barely glanced at them. He held Noah without being asked, his touch surprisingly gentle and sure. He stood by Olivia's bedside for hours, often in silence, without pushing for forgiveness, without making excuses. He read to her from books of poetry, old love letters he once wrote in the early days of their courtship, letters he'd found tucked away, and sometimes he just sat silently when she clearly needed space, his presence a quiet offering. There were no grand declarations, no dramatic pronouncements of change, just his consistent, humble presence. That presence, she slowly began to realize, mattered more than he knew. Olivia watched him through guarded, weary eyes. She saw the new tension in his shoulders, the quiet, profound remorse that seemed to haunt every word he spoke, every gesture he made. He was no longer the man who breezed through high-stakes meetings with unshakable charm and supreme confidence. That version of Ethan, the one who had both captivated and ultimately betrayed her, had been stripped away. What stood before her now was someone raw, humbled, and undeniably broken, but someone who was undeniably trying. One evening, after Noah had finally drifted off to sleep in her arms, his tiny breath soft and even, Olivia spoke softly, her voice barely more than a breath, her gaze fixed on the sleeping infant. "I never thought I'd end up here," she said, her voice tinged with a lingering sadness. "Not just in a hospital bed, recovering from that, but here with you." She paused, then added, her voice trembling slightly, "Wondering if I'm crazy to even let you stay in this room, Ethan." Ethan, seated in the uncomfortable visitor's chair beside her bed, looked up slowly, his heart aching at her words. "You're not crazy, Liv." "I might be," she said, her eyes filling with unshed tears. "After what you did, what you hid, what you risked our baby, you don't just get to walk back into this room, into my life, and ask me to pretend it didn't happen, that you didn't shatter everything." "I'm not asking you to pretend, Olivia," Ethan said, his voice steady, earnest. "I would never ask that of you. I'm asking you, I'm hoping you'll let me prove I can be better, that I can be the man you deserve, the father Noah deserves." She turned her head away, staring at the monotonous pattern of the hospital curtains. "Do you have any idea how terrifying it was? Lying on that floor, wondering if I'd lose the baby, wondering if I'd lost you completely, the you I thought I knew." Ethan blinked, his throat tightening. "I see in your eyes every day, Olivia, and I hate myself for putting that fear there. I live with that image every second. I loved you so much," she whispered, the words almost lost in the quiet hum of the hospital. "Even when you started slipping away, when the distance between us grew, I held on. I made excuses for you. I told myself we were just growing, evolving, not breaking apart." Ethan reached over gently, tentatively, placing his hand over hers where it rested on the blanket. "I don't deserve your love, Olivia. I know I don't. But if there's even a tiny piece of it left, a single ember, I want to fight for it. I need to fight for it." Olivia looked at their hands, his larger, rougher one covering hers, which still trembled slightly with uncertainty. A part of her, the wounded, self-protective part, wanted to pull away to shield herself from more potential pain. But she didn't. "I don't know if I can ever forget, Ethan," she said, her voice heavy with the weight of their past. "I don't know if I even want to." "You shouldn't," he said immediately, his gaze intense. "Why it should never be erased, never forgotten. It's a part of our story now, a dark chapter. But I promise you, Olivia, I've ended it. Bella is out of my life completely. I'm stepping back from the company, handing over the reins for a while. All that ambition, all that running I see now, with painful clarity, it was just me trying to outrun my own emptiness, my own insecurities." She said nothing, just watched him, her expression unreadable. "Being here," he continued, his voice thick with emotion, "watching you give birth to our son, Noah, watching you hold on, be so strong, when I gave you every single reason to let go, to walk away, it changed me, Olivia. Fundamentally, I don't want the life I built before, the one that almost cost me everything. I want this. I want you. I want Noah. I want a chance to be a real husband, a real father." Olivia closed her eyes for a long moment. The ache in her heart remained, a dull, persistent throb. But alongside it, something else was stirring. Something unfamiliar, tentative, but not entirely unwelcome. "Hope. I'm not making any promises, Ethan," she said finally, opening her eyes, her gaze clear and direct. "I can't just hand you my heart again like nothing happened. It's not that simple. I know, he said softly. I don't expect it to be. I need boundaries, she continued, her voice gaining strength. I need space. And if I see even a hint of dishonesty, Ethan, if I feel unsafe or disrespected for even a second, I will walk away. And I will never look back. Do you understand? He nodded slowly, gravely. I would expect nothing less. I deserve nothing less. For the first time in weeks, a flicker of something akin to relief crossed her tired face. She glanced at Noah, who stirred softly in her arms, his tiny mouth making sucking motions. We named him Noah, she said, a faint smile touching her lips. It means rest, comfort. He's brought that to me, a reason to be strong. Ethan smiled faintly, a genuine, sad smile. That's perfect. He's perfect. The next morning, Olivia was discharged. Ethan insisted on driving her home, his attentiveness almost painful to watch. He opened every door, carried every bag, adjusted her seat, not because she asked, but because he seemed to need to, a small, tangible way to show his care. Back at the house, things were quiet, subdued. The once grand, echoing estate felt different now, not in its size or its opulent elegance, but in the heavy, somber energy that filled it. Olivia walked from room to room, as if seeing it all for the first time, or perhaps for the last time as she once knew it. Every framed photo on the walls, every familiar corner where shadows of their past life once lingered, now seemed to hold a different meaning. In the nursery, she placed Noah gently in his crib and turned to find Ethan standing at the doorway. Watching her, his expression a mixture of hope and trepidation. Are you sure you want to be here, Ethan? She asked, her voice quiet but firm. Really sure? Yes, he said, without hesitation. Not because I have nowhere else to go, but because this is the only place I want to be. With you. With Noah. She didn't smile, but she didn't turn him away either. And for now, that small, unspoken acceptance was enough. It was a beginning. The weeks and months that followed Noah's birth passed in a haze of sleepless nights, soft lullabies, and whispered, often one-sided apologies. The rhythm of their life slowed to the gentle, demanding heartbeat of a newborn fragile, unpredictable, and undeniably beautiful. But behind the tender feedings and shared, fumbling diaper duties was a deeper, more delicate reconstruction, one that required far more than bottles and baby wipes. It required the painstaking rebuilding of trust. Ethan knew that regaining Olivia's trust would be the greatest, most arduous challenge of his life, and the most important. The old days of grand gestures and flashy, empty promises were gone. Olivia didn't want diamonds or exotic trips. She wanted stability, honesty, presence. She wanted truth, and she made that abundantly clear. In a quiet, emotionally charged conversation one night, while Noah lay sleeping peacefully in a bassinet between their separate beds, Olivia spoke the words Ethan had been bracing himself to hear. I'm not going to pretend things are fine, Ethan, she said, her voice even, devoid of its earlier hysteria, but heavy with a settled sadness. We're not just going to bounce back from this like nothing happened. This what you did, it broke something in me. Something fundamental. And I don't know if I'll ever see you the same way again. Ethan listened without interruption, the weight of her calmly delivered words slicing deeper than any shouted accusation ever could. He nodded slowly. I understand, he said softly, and I won't ask for your forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I'll just try to earn it, day by day, action by action. No shortcuts. So they began therapy together, and separately with professionals who didn't sugarcoat the truth, who helped them pull back the painful layers of wounds and unspoken truths, forcing them to confront the complex reasons behind Ethan's devastating betrayal, Olivia's quiet, unaddressed suffering, and the insidious silence that had crept into their marriage long before Bella Vance ever arrived on the scene. In those sessions, Olivia voiced her pain, her loneliness. The nights she felt unseen, unheard. The months, even years, when Ethan had consistently chosen ambition over affection, success over connection. Ethan, in turn, confessed his deep-seated insecurities. The relentless need to feel powerful, to achieve, the gnawing fear of becoming ordinary, of failing, and the reckless, destructive hunger that led him to chase validation outside their home, outside their marriage. There were tears, many tears. There were raw, painful arguments, sessions when Olivia stormed out, unable to bear the weight of it all, and days when Ethan questioned whether they'd ever be whole again, whether the damage was simply too great. But there were breakthroughs, two small, fragile moments of understanding, of shared vulnerability. Olivia began painting again, a passion she'd long neglected. She transformed a spare room into a bright, airy studio. The familiar, comforting scent of oil paint and turpentine returned to their home, and with it, a sliver of her old self, vibrant, expressive, open. Ethan, true to his word, stepped back significantly from his business. He promoted a trusted COO to manage daily operations and blocked out significant time each afternoon and evening to be present with his family. Not just physically present in the same room, but emotionally available, engaged. He read to Noah for hours, his voice a low rumble. He learned how to cook simple, nutritious meals for Olivia. He even started journaling, a practice their therapist had suggested, filling pages with his reflections, his regrets, his hopes. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the mansion began to change. The echo of high heels on marble floors and the sharp, urgent ring of corporate calls gave way to the delightful sound of baby laughter, the shuffle of socked feet on hardwood, and the quiet rustle of pages turned in late-night reading sessions. Olivia noticed these changes. She noticed when Ethan turned down a lucrative speaking engagement in New York to attend Noah's first pediatric checkup. She noticed when he turned off his phone during dinner without being asked, his attention solely on her and their son. She noticed when he sat beside her, night after night, just to talk, not as a husband desperate to defend himself or win her back, but as a man genuinely trying to listen, to understand, to reconnect. And although the memory of the shove, the devastating lies, and Bella's venomous name still lingered like a persistent shadow in the corners of her mind, Olivia allowed herself, slowly, carefully, to believe again. Not in a fairy tale redemption, not in a magical erasure of the past, but in effort, in humility, in the possibility of genuine, lasting growth. Their story was no longer about achieving perfection or maintaining a flawless facade. It was about rebuilding one fragile, deliberate step at a time, on a foundation of hard-won honesty. Years passed, not as a blur, but as a tapestry woven with intention, each thread representing a choice, a conversation, a shared moment of healing or quiet joy. The Grand Monroe estate, once a symbol of Ethan's ambition and their eventual fracture, now felt like a true home, filled with warmth and the vibrant energy of a young family. Noah was a lively 5-year-old, his laughter echoing through rooms that once held only tense silences. He had his father's bright eyes and his mother's gentle smile, a perfect blend of them both. Ethan was a changed man. The relentless hunger for more had been replaced by a quiet contentment, a deep appreciation for the simple, profound blessings of family. He still worked, but his priorities had irrevocably shifted. He was home for dinner every night, coached Noah's little league team, and his hand, more often than not, was found holding Olivia's. Olivia, too, had found her own path to peace. Her art studio was her sanctuary, her paintings now imbued with a depth and resilience that spoke of her journey. She had forgiven Ethan, not by forgetting the past, but by choosing to build a new future with him, a future based on a more profound, tested love. The scars remained, a reminder of the storms they had weathered, but they no longer defined her or them. One crisp autumn evening, as they sat on the porch watching Noah chase fireflies in the twilight, Olivia leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder. The air was cool, scented with fallen leaves and the distant aroma of wood smoke. "Do you remember," she said softly, "how terrified I was that we'd never find our way back?" Ethan wrapped his arm around her, pulling her closer. "Every day, Liv, and every day, I'm grateful you gave us this chance. You and Noah, you're my everything. The best parts of me. We built something stronger, didn't we? She mused, her voice content. Something real from the ashes. He kissed the top of her head. We did, and we'll keep building every single day. Their love story wasn't a perfect fairy tale, but there's a testament to the resilience of the human heart, the courage to forgive, and the enduring power of a love that chose to heal and grow, proving that even from the deepest depths of pain, it's possible to rise and rebuild a life filled with meaning, joy, and a hard-earned, beautiful peace. Their journey was a quiet reminder that true success isn't measured in wealth or accolades, but in the love that endures and the strength found in choosing each other again and again. If this story moved you, made you reflect, or offered a glimmer of hope, please support our channel. Like this video, share it with someone who might find solace or inspiration in its message, and subscribe for more powerful tales of love, struggle, and the redemptive power of the human spirit. Your engagement helps us bring these complex narratives to life. Join us as we continue to explore the intricate landscapes of human hearts, one story at a time. Together, let's keep our faith in the power of transformation alive.